Hello boys, this is White Pill Media and welcome back to the channel. So from the title you could gather that we have two games to talk about. These are two smaller indie games that I've had on my radar for some time. They are Dex and NeoFeud. NeoFeud is a cyberpunk point and click adventure. And we have Dex, which is also cyberpunk, so we have a running theme here. And Dex is a 2D side-scrolling, like, open world. It has some RPG elements, like you can kind of like upgrade skills and stuff. It has like combat. You have like some side quests, so it's like a little non-linear. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to go, what you're interested in. So I'm going to have full spoilers for both of these games, and I will also be upfront and say that I did not finish Dex. I did beat NeoFeud, not because I was having a good time, and it wasn't so bad, it was good, but it was so bad that I felt like I really wanted to talk to you guys about it, and I wanted to have like a full picture of it. With Dex, I ended up quitting a couple of hours in. There were two main issues with Dex. It kind of had like a good cyberpunk atmosphere. It's raining. I like our opening cutscene, but the combat was just kind of frustrating and annoying, and there's a decent amount of combat. And there's also a hacking minigame, which, while I do hate the hacking minigames in Deus Ex, Human Revolution, and in Mankind Divided, and those are annoying for their own reasons, this is like a bullet hell hacking minigame, and it fucking sucks, and yes, you do have to hack quite a bit, so I just got a little frustrated. I don't know, I set it down, and I really didn't have any interest in going forward with it. Unfortunately, I have to say that, yeah, both of these games are strong non-recommendations. I typically like to just like, here's recommendations. I like to, I'm not always super positive on this channel, but I usually like to have shit that I can recommend. I guess I would recommend, if you haven't played it, the original Deus Ex. It's very good. Even if you aren't big on older games, it's definitely worth playing. I also had some videos out on Invisible War, Mankind Divided, Human Revolution. Really didn't like them, and I go into a lot of detail on why. Now we're just gonna get into it with Dex. Yeah, so Dex, as I said, didn't finish it. I have no interest in finishing it. I looked up some of the ending stuff. It doesn't seem like super interesting. So it's raining. We're on this cyberpunk balcony, actually kind of like our intro. We have like flashes of this weird dream. We get told by this guy called Raycast to wake up, and we're like jamming the doors because some SWAT guys have like guns and they're going to kill us. So we block the elevator to stop the troops, and we're supposed to meet this guy named Decker at this bar. So this game takes a lot of inspiration from like Blade Runner, right, with some of our naming, and then also Deus Ex, just from like our world and some of the plot points. Once you block the elevator guys, there's not like a fail state here. Like if you just hang out in your apartment, you can't die, which I don't know. I think that's a little disappointing. But then, you have to hop around and like climb ladders and move along the rooftops because we're trying to get to Fixer's Hope. You can fall off and die here and like jump over railings. It's got like pretty basic combat. You can block, you can punch, you can do silent takedowns by walking up to guys. It is somewhat weird. You can roll with Q, right? But when you roll, you're not like facing the correct way. And if you're blocking and you're not facing your opponent, you still won't take damage because you're blocking. It just looks like really awkward and just kind of uncomfortable. And a lot of combat here is just like block, get in a punch or two, block, get in a punch or two. It's very slow. And then you fall into this nest of gangsters. You fight them. You can loot bodies. There's money. There's data chips, which give XP. And you can also like find condoms. And this was very odd for me because for like any RPG, it'd be like, you found a mana potion. What do you use a mana potion for? It gives you, it fills up your mana bar, or a health potion, or gold, or like armor. it all has a purpose, but you can just like find condoms. You can loot condoms. So you're down in these sewers and you have a lot of paths to pick. There's a crazy guy who wants me to blow up a bridge for a key. You can also just like lockpick the door and just completely ignore him. I just kind of messed around down there. I found like some parcels for people. You can like open it. I think it might be a gun, but I decided to not open it. There's no minigame for lockpicking, which I thought was really good. I wish there was no minigame for hacking, but oh well. And then I can enter Fixer's Hope. There's some like toxic tank place that leads to a chemical factory. So it seems like there's like a decent amount to explore. But if you do try to go to the toxic tanks area, you will just die because of the toxic gas. And I didn't really see a valve. I think maybe if you get an augment and then return, like an augment to let you breathe toxic gas. Because I also saw like electric hazards as well. And that's very kind of Deus Ex-y, right? With with the environmental protection augmentations. I ended up going to the surface, and I met Decker. He's this bartender. Raycast is this big-time hacker. There's some group called the Complex after us. You speak with Decker a little bit, and then he tells us to get the hell out of there because the Complex showed up. They're like some secret megacorp. And we're supposed to meet a guy named Tony in Chinatown. And on my way from Decker's place to Chinatown, there's a bunch of thugs that you have to fight. I wouldn't say combat is difficult, really, but I would say it's unfun. It's just kind of tedious. It's a little boring. It's a little clunky. You can like cheese it pretty easily. Like the big heavy guys, you can just roll around. You can like Q past the big guy, hit, Q, Q, and just roll back and forth over him and like take him down like really easily. You could really do it without getting hit once, but it's not very fun. You don't get like great loot. Sometimes you get no loot at all. That's another complaint. Sometimes you will lockpick a room or go into an area and it's like, oh, there's no loot in this room. And sure, I agree that maybe not every room or area you go to needs to like reward the player for exploring. I ran into a decent amount of just bullshit rooms that had nothing in it, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing at all. Like even like a basic heal 10 health points thing. The opposite isn't great either. Like in Mankind Divided, there's like too much clutter. There's just so much shit to loot and pick up that it's a little overwhelming, but scarcity also sucks. So anyway, I ran through it all. I made it to Tony's place, who's this fat dude, and Decker and Raycast talk. There's some super AI named Kether who's going to create some anarchist dream because it was going to just like run things and no one could control it, like the Complex. And we are apparently the seed of Kether, but Kether is being like locked down and held in combat against this like super protective like guard AI that the Complex is using. So if we can break Kether free, then we can break out of this dystopian nightmare. We get introduced to the hacking minigame now, which I thought was kind of fun at first. You get to move around and shoot, and it's like a bullet hell. It's not very fun. I was mistaken. My first impression was wrong. And once you're out of Tony's place, you have the main quest, right? You're supposed to go there, get augmented, and then go do some stuff. But you are free to move around. Like you can go back to the sewers. You can go to Chinatown. You can go to the slums. There's a dockyard. There's an industrial complex. There's like a high-rise, nice building. There's some apartments. There's a shit ton. There's some stores. So it's open. It's a pretty open world. It's 2D. You cannot like interact with any NPCs on the street. You will sometimes find people that have like an exclamation point over their head, and these are quest givers. I would say the voice acting's pretty good. Like all the quest givers that I ran into, it seemed like the voice acting was pretty solid for them. And yeah, you can just purchase stuff. You can kind of go at your own pace, and I think that's pretty solid. You can find things like porn magazines in the game. You can't like interact with them or look at the pictures, but they're there. There's also just like literal condom machines. Loot these off enemies in battle. I suppose you could sell them to some stores. I didn't do that, but I guess that's an option. But they're just literal condom machines. The opening atmosphere of the world, it worked. It did feel like cyberpunk. It did feel Blade Runner, Deus Ex, right? It feels like a little silly to have like literal condom machines, and then you can buy condoms. Am I playing like a sex game? And is having a lot of safe sex going to be like a main feature of this game? It's not. I think they just want to say, see, like this is a real adult cyberpunk game. Like we have sex in this game. There are condom machines right over there. That just felt a little silly and ridiculous. I think it's fine to portray your world as like seedy and full of debauchery, sex trafficking, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That lines up. But just here are like several condom machines. There's more than one. So didn't love that. I'm just doing a lot of side quests. You can find a wounded cop who gives you some quests like take down some gang. There are some prostitutes. You can sleep with them. You can sleep with like male prostitutes or female prostitutes. You can buy guns, and I eagerly bought my first gun because I was sick and tired of melee combat. I had played for less than an hour, and I was tired of melee combat. Guns are not great. Sometimes where you're aiming does not line up with where you shoot. When you do shoot, you have like insane recoil. You're not even like aiming at the same fucking spot. And you would think like shooting someone in the head with a revolver might just kill them. It doesn't. It takes several bullets to bring down a simple enemy. The guns feel as bad as melee combat, and that was really stupid. So I decided to break into some apartments. There's some old bitch dying of cancer, crying that like I broke into her house. They didn't have a lot of stuff to steal. And outside you have this quest for poor Timmy. He wants like money to get his mom a liver, so I gave him some money. You get like this Christian medallion, and then you get some seedy stuff outside. There's some guy named Speedy who will like sell you a skill point for like $1,000. That's pretty good. Also like XP stuff. And I'm just kind of wandering around. I tried progressing in some areas, but it looks like wherever I go, stealth is not really a thing. You're always basically going to be forced to do combat, whether it be with guns or hand to hand. Neither feel great, so I'm just avoiding that shit right now. You run into like a restaurant that got blown up, and maybe there was something going on there. There's some like reporter chick that wants you to investigate. I think she's like a lesbian. And then you have the Aphrodite Sex Club. You can request a man for sex here. There's some obsessed fan of the singer Barbara. This like crazy fan, if you like go into that apartment building, she's like getting surgery to change her face and become like the new Barbara. And I do complete a couple of quests. They feel fine, not great. The quests are over pretty fast. I don't think any of the side quests I completed, maybe there are longer ones, but it seems like every side quest can basically be completed in like less than 15 minutes. None of them felt really amazing to me. I guess maybe if I had played more, it would have fleshed out the world a bit more. But the game feels a little stingy at times. Like I will go into a room, there will be a box to loot. I will loot the box, and then it will just be empty. Hate that it will waste your time and just have you loot box. It's like, box was empty. I don't know. That's a little gay. That's a little frustrating. Something with movement in the game is that Aphrodite, I was trying to like go upstairs, and to go upstairs, you can't jump up there. You can like jump down pretty easily, right? That's not really a problem. But to go up and make sure you're not just like continuing to go to like the left on like the same level, you have to approach it from a certain way, and then you will walk up it, and that will carry you to the next floor. But for some reason, it wasn't working. After like exiting and entering the room a few times, it just finally worked. That felt a bit clunky. Another thing is when you do complete a quest, the little exclamation points over the quest givers, they do not go away. So I thought, did little Timmy have another quest for me? No, he did not. The exclamation point just stays there. I feel like that would have been a fairly easy thing to remove. This is the quote unquote enhanced edition. I'm not sure exactly what the difference between the base game and the enhanced version is. I think you can only purchase the enhanced version online. I think they just tweaked a few things, but I'm not 100% sure on the differences because I never played the original version. There's not a ton of music in this game, but I do like the stuff in the Chinese Quarter. I'll play that a little bit. And for the main quest, there's some gang called the True Body Gang who attack anyone sporting hardware. They're not the brightest, but they're like a purity first type of group. I really, really like them. I did not get to interact with them. I just got to hack into a terminal and like get information from them. But around this point, I was tired because I thought the gun would make combat doable. It didn't. Apparently, there is a skill called the AR skill, which lets you hack people, just normal people, and it just pauses all combat, and if you hack them, it stuns them. It doesn't matter how tough the enemy is, and then you can just silent takedown them. And there's not a cooldown or anything for this skill, so I didn't know that, and apparently it trivializes combat, but I just wasn't enjoying the game enough to like get that skill and then cheese my way through the rest of the game. And I was just tired of the computer hacking bullet hell bullshit, which was not fun or really engaging at all. So I ended my game at the docks. I got to a point where dealing with just turrets, which would just be annoying for me. And I played it for 4 hours. I was not having fun. I just don't want to replay it. I looked up some of the endings, so maybe skip this part if you care. But there's like a thing where I guess you merge with Kether and you become like a benevolent person. I think there's another one where you join the complex and you're evil. So there's probably more endings, but those are what I looked up. So it's kind of like Deus Ex in a way, like join with the Helios AI, join the Illuminati. There's probably some other options. I feel like there's some like good ideas. I like some of it visually, but it's just a bit too clunky for me to get into. Some of the RPG elements feel okay. Yeah, none of it felt great. And then just looking at like upgrades, I'm like, oh, maybe I should upgrade my melee so that'll be better. But the next upgrade in melee was if you land 3 hits, the 3rd hit does better. Fuck. There are like plenty of enemies where you don't really get to have 3 hits, so that just felt shitty. So that's where I stopped. There were other like little issues. Like I got to the docks, I could not talk to the fisherman. He would not speak to me at all. There were a lot of doors that were just locked and I couldn't enter. But then once I left the area and came back, now I could interact with all those things. Which maybe that's not a huge deal. If this is like an enhanced edition, you would think little things like that would have been ironed out. Anyways, that was Dex. NeoFeud. NeoFeud is really fucking bad. Like really, really fucking bad. It's a visual novel. The creator followed me on X, so I followed them back. I didn't know anything about them, and I'm like, I don't know, they followed me on X, and oh, they have a indie game? Sure, I like reading indie books. I'll try out an indie game. First thing with NeoFeud, as I said, it's a point-and-click adventure. It's cyberpunk. You cannot get a full-screen mode. Your windowed mode is actually like pretty small on your monitor, at least for me, and it looked like absolute shit. There's no way to adjust that. And while it had like the game in this little windowed box and then a black screen, it just had like this weird thing off to the side in the lower right-hand corner. I don't know. It just felt like a mistake. Like that was not a design choice. It just felt like it was above the developer's capabilities to fucking fix that. So no full screen option. A little frustrating. I figured it out with OBS on how to record, but there are also just times where there would be certain game elements off screen or partially off screen. Yeah, they just never really figured out, I guess, the resolution or whatever to their own game. So that's a really good first impression. We open up with a cutscene which is reminiscent of the opening cutscene to Deus Ex with Bob Page and Morgan Everett. They're talking about their schemes and their plans. And in this cutscene, there's this huge party going on. We have a massive complex. They talk about some golems, temporal problems, time travel, people that want to ascend. The kingdom of heaven is open. Some of the art looks all right, but a lot of it looks kind of bad, but I was sort of into it. Like, I don't know, it was an independent game, cyberpunk-y. The intro sort of reminded me of Deus Ex, so I'm like, okay, I'm into it. Then we are driving a car. We are in Coastlandia. It's our city. There's a fuck ton of traffic. It looks dystopic as hell. Our main character is smoking a cyber cigarette that prevents him from smoking anymore because he has reached his nicotine limit. He talks about goddamn social justice AI, so I thought, oh, based. I was very, very wrong, but I thought initially, ooh, based. Our guy, very little money. He has a broken down cyber arm, but he's got to get into work. He goes into work. There's this long line of robots and mutants, and it's just very weird. And we're on our way to the office, and as we're passing by these people, I end up dropping my card. And I try to enter my office. I cannot enter my office without my card. This is probably just like an old school point and click thing, but it took me a minute to get used to. But like, if you want to walk anywhere, you can't just like really click to like use the little bar at the top of the screen and then click on the walk thing and then press where you want to walk. If you want to grab something, you have to press the hand option and then interact with something. If you want to see something, you have to do that. So I guess if you're someone who has greater experience with maybe older style point and click games, it's not really a big deal, but it did take me a little bit to get used to it. I'm like, wow, that doesn't feel great. Like, I don't know, if I'm clicking, I should be able to like walk where I'm clicking, or even just like the eyesight thing. It just, I don't know, a lot of it just felt like a little clunky. Another thing with this game, which I did not know before I bought it, is that it is extremely heavy-handed in its political messaging. It's extremely far left. I also didn't know that as well. And we'll get into some of that more later on because it is cringy and long-winded. It's, you know, basically how the left cannot meme, and whenever they try to do like a funny comic or whatever, it's like a huge wall of text. That's that. For basically an entire game, it's that. The left cannot meme. But we have some signs around non-humans are second-class citizen. It's really based. It's Jim Crow 2.0. We have soldier with mutant legs. We have robots that have sentience, but not like a huge degree of sentience, apparently. Child with tentacles, and the kid doesn't know where our card is, but they make a My Little Pony reference. Another super thing about this game is the amount of references to shit in our time. Like, we have a Deus Ex reference. We have our JC Denton standing in line. We have references to the Terminator, so much shit from our time and from our era. And I don't know exactly what year this game takes place, but you have like flying cars, you have robots, you have mutant people, you have like giant garbage cities. Apparently the super rich are colonizing the solar system. You would think we're hundreds, if not thousands of years into the future. But I saw one thing that maybe we're in the year 2033 or somewhere along those lines, and that doesn't fucking work. Even in like 2033, the references that they're making do not make sense. They do not work. Maybe the Deus Ex one is okay, because that's more for the player, and the guy doesn't say, hey, I'm from Deus Ex. But the little girl talking about like My Little fucking Pony really, really doesn't work. And your guy is a social worker, and apparently the person that stole your card is this robot chick, and you really want your card back because otherwise, you know, you could be arrested for not having a card, I think, or at the very least, you cannot get into your office without your card. You tell the robot chick that she could be arrested without cause, the right to trial by firing squad, the courts are biased against robots, and then the robo girl gives a sob story about needing dem programs, about needing free housing and feed all kids, all that bullshit. The game forces you to let her use the card. You have no choice to say, no, your name is Carl. To get benefits and gibs in this world, you have to pass a sentience test, which makes sense to me that robots would be last in line if actual literal humans needed things like housing and food. Oh, and by the way, robots need things like energy. They also need like housing of their own. So they're extremely and not subtly stand in for minorities, mostly black people, I would say, but just minorities, the underclasses, whatever leftist cause you want to pick. That's what the robots and the mutants are in this world. But to get any government assistance, you would require non-humans to take this test, and if they did not pass a sentience test, then they would not be given any free food, free housing, that type of thing. What the fuck is wrong with that? They say, what have they got that we don't? It's our society. It's a human society built by humans for humans. It's built for us. And if a robot can like walk and talk, but it's not sentient like a human being, then no, it shouldn't be entitled to just free shit. But whatever. Robo Chick, she fails the sentience test, and then you have a cop literally pull out his gun. The cop starts shooting at this unarmed robot woman. He fires 2 shots, and then there's this tense standoff between them, and there's no option to have the cop kill the woman and just end it there, which would be very based and cool because she is committing a felony right now, and you cannot do the correct thing here. But you have a little puzzle here. If you walk forward, you can get shot. You can tell the cop to check his safety, and then he'll like turn it on. The cop is, I guess, just supposed to be retarded because we started this scene with the police officer firing 2 rounds, and now he's turning his safety on so that, you know, now he can't shoot anymore, whatever. And then you tell the cop to look behind you, and then you use your arm because your arm has like a few attachments in it. So you plug in your taser, you charge it up, and when the cop turns around, then you tase him and he tries to shoot you. But it doesn't work because his safety is on. You were forced to tase a police officer, and then I got my first achievement of the game. And this achievement is called Robot Lives Matter. That's hilarious. That's so fucking funny. I could not fucking believe that. I think this game came out in 2017, but holy hell, that was just fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I put out a video on Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and in that game they say all lives matter, and I will tell you that robot lives do not matter and all lives certainly don't matter. After that, you get to go into your office to do a mountain of paperwork. You are apparently an ex-cop who has an ex-wife and a son as well. You've been divorced. We don't know why you're not a police officer anymore. And I ran into a bit of an issue where you're trying to repair your robot arm. You have to grab a screwdriver, and then you have 4 screws. You have to click on the screw and then turn it twice, and then a third time to get off that screw. You have to do that for all the screws. Then you have to put the screwdriver down, click on your hand, use the clamp to click that thing off, and then you have to remove paper that's wedged inside the arm, and then you have to grab the olive oil and then pour the olive oil in there. But the game broke for me where I literally could not put down the olive oil and I could not progress. So I had to load an earlier save. I hate this game so much. And while taking the screws out was super fun, you also have to manually put the screws back in. I'm going to just play all of that. Did that look fun to you? Good. It wasn't. That is probably the most tedious part of the game from what I can remember. Why? This is just torture, you know? Just click the screw once, the screw's out, whatever, and then just do like a super small animation to say that, hey, I put it back. Whatever. It's not fun. I guess I'm interacting, quote unquote. Holy shit, it was not fun. Oh, and our boss, Shuffler, calls us, and he just bitches us out, and apparently we have to go look after a kid because we're a social worker, and, you know, no one knows where this kid is, so we end up going to this apartment complex. I wasted a good amount of time trying to figure out how to walk up these stairs, no matter how hard I clicked, no matter how hard I used the walking icons. I could not move up these apartment steps. What you have to do, and it seems very easy, and I'm just a retard, and that's probably correct, but you have to click specifically, very specifically on this little flashing text when you hover over it that says go upstairs. And you click on that, and then your character will do a little animation and walk up the steps, because you cannot just click and walk up the steps yourself. A little annoying. We have this black woman sitting in a chair, not working. Surprise, surprise. And she wants us to hack into a power box so they can get some gibs, and they want the free electricity. Apparently, the city destroyed their sun-catching trees, and they had a totally off-the-grid, sustainable power source, but the city ruined it. And I'm like, sure, these people were ingenious enough to come up with their own self-sustaining power source, and then the city ruined it for them. I really believe it. You can't interact with the box right away. You have to get a cigarette. So you go over to this. I don't know what I want to call this kid. His name is Johnny. I think I could call him Black Bot and get away with that. He's basically like a black gangster teenage robot who has a hell of a mouth on him. And I just don't know what I can get away with calling him, but I'll play some of his voice acting now.
Nah, bro. You just straight reeking of that Bruce Willis vibe. You know what I'm saying, nigga? Mad gruff voice, bedraggled, receding hairline and shit. Frowning all the time like some motherfucker just spit inside your brown bag bottle of vodka.
Okay, I get it.
Oh, hell no. I straight up blew my entire paycheck.
Hey, I'm a cop, remember?
It's awful. It is genuinely so awful. I would skip his dialogue many times throughout the game. Characters talk too much overall, but him, it's just nails on a chalkboard. I think maybe Nigbot would be a little too far, so we probably should not call Johnny Nigbot. So I won't do that anymore. Johnny called us a Denzel Washington looking cop. That is a dated as fuck reference. He also calls us Bruce Willis. It's retarded. It's so bad. It's so anachronistic. It's out of time, basically. This doesn't fucking work. If there are robots and mutants and flying fucking cars, we're not making references to Bruce Willis and Denzel fucking Washington. So we end up hacking the power box so these hardworking super geniuses can get their free electricity, and we enter into this apartment so we can find out where Johnny is. And the weird Terminator war vet robot that we saw at our workplace, he's there. Apparently he's the foster father of Johnny. He's like a super killer, but actually he believes in peace and love. Isn't that funny? That's basically as humorous as the game gets. And then the wife here, she is also a robot. She's drinking from a bottle. The bottle drops later on, and it's like oil. I don't know if that's considered like a beer, like she's drinking while pregnant or not. But she has a weird robot tentacle baby in her arms. And also she has a incubator, and they're growing a robot inside her. Again, robots are supposed to be like black people and oppressed people. So maybe you're not supposed to think too hard, and maybe the developer didn't really fucking care. But why do robotic kids need to be incubated at all? Why do they have to be robotic children at all? If you're a robot, you're just code, you're hardware, software, I don't know computers, but a CPU, right? So if two robots want to create another robot, why couldn't you just write the code that you want and then just put it into a adult robot body? I just don't really understand. It doesn't really make any sense to me why things are the way they are. I can understand robots needing energy. They would have to have electricity or, I don't know, oil, whatever, some type of energy source. But why do they also have to live in human apartment buildings or just anything resembling what a human would need? Because again, they're robots, they're not human. Why do they have to have the shit that we have? Who would program them like that? Anyways, so you're touring their little shitty apartment and you're filing paperwork, and you can report them. You will click on something and then ask them about it. You can mark it as this is an unsafe house or this is a good house. I mark them as bad parents every single time. Apparently, non-humans need a license to self-replicate. That's super based. And we end up leaving the apartment. We don't know where Johnny is. Our boss calls and he wants us to take their children away. The cops come immediately to go get them. It's really funny. These SWAT guys burst in and they end up shooting Todd, the Terminator guy. They like blow his fucking hands off in this kitchen. It's this little scene. They grab like the mutant robot child of tentacles. I think the kid's name is Princess. It looks so disgusting. I'm glad it's being taken away to be like thrown away in an incinerator. The cops talk about an incident like the Trayvon King incident. I'm like, holy shit. Okay, keep that in mind. Trayvon King. But after all that, we go outside and there's this weird like anime character. That's the best way to describe them. They have a super secret mask. They have a little trench coat. He has some like mind superpower that fucks with our head and our memories. After that, we head to the arcade because Johnny might be there, and we're just stuck outside. There's a junkie that makes a Blade Runner reference, and this is like gang territory, so you just have to do like a few little puzzles and then you get inside the arcade. You can click on one of the arcade games inside and it says Robot Lives Matter. Apparently this game was promoting like anti-robot sentiment. We're looking for Johnny, right? And we get in a fight with one guy at the bar, and this brings out Proto J, the like gangster leader who's actually Johnny. Yes, the leader of one of the most violent gangs in this city is actually this young teenage robot boy, Blackbot, the robot that was smoking outside of his parents' apartment. And yeah, Proto J as like your badass gang leader is so retarded. He also like shoots and kills one of his men for slightly questioning his orders. I hate it. I always hate that in any medium where you have like your big bad evil guy and he just like murders one of his henchmen to show you just how much of a badass he is. No, that's not how like any organization really works. Like even if you were like a super villain, you wouldn't do that because like all your other henchmen would be like, fuck this, I want to get out of this situation, or we should replace the boss, whatever. I think it's bad. Then the police are storming the arcade and we have this very jank shootout scene where you have to like run to cover and then you can switch between characters. So as Carl, you're shooting a gun off at SWAT guys and Proto J is supposed to move shit. Proto J also has mind powers. Like that weird guy outside the apartment has mind powers and Proto J does too. I don't get it. But we finished the super jank shootout. I did have a walkthrough pulled up on my second monitor because I was not having fun with the game. And if I was not doing a review for it, I absolutely would not have finished. And the walkthrough just sped shit up for me just because I was fucking tired and I did not want to play this game. I think coming right off of Dex, and Dex being a game that I dropped, I did not want to drop 2 games in a row, so that's why I had the walkthrough. We managed to sneak out of the arcade, but we still get caught by cops, but then a magic spaceship appears. The trenchcoat guy is back. He is called the Golem Project, and the cops turn on him, and they start shooting, but Trenchcoat ends up killing all the cops. The ship has Trenchcoat and also a woman with us. And then on the ship, we time travel an hour into the past. This woman is Princess Sybil. She's an inspiring revolutionary, talks about the problems of inequality, 1%. I'll play some of her dialogue, but there's a fuck ton of her dialogue. She's basically a trust fund rich kid, like literally from the richest and most powerful family in existence. And she has turned on her people.
Well, like I said, I'm royalty, and that's the problem. Inequality. The 1% and the people living in, well, hell on earth.
So, what are you gonna do about it?
I am not entirely sure, to be honest. Like I said, I'm a celebutante and a princess. That's what I've been groomed for my whole life. The smiling and waving, the charity balls, gold leaf cake, and flying limousines. It's just so tedious and...
On the one hand, I think maybe you one crazy royal bitch, but I think I feels you too. You're talking like the public enemy, Martin Luther King shit. That's real. You got a heart, and I can respect that.
You know that sentience exam, the Gertzel-Takeda test, that by law all entities need to take to be considered a person, legally speaking? All the institutional racism and speciesism aside, we know that the average human scores about a 4.1 on the consciousness test. But if you were to take that test, you would register something like a 10 or higher.
What the flack? Hey, I took that piece of shit test back when I first got out of robot prison and was looking for some food stamps, a job training, or some shit. They denied everything because I scored a, what was it, 2.5?
So she's a class traitor and I guess a race traitor as well. And she just wants to fight for the minorities. Blackbot makes a reference to Martin Luther King. That's just super. So the people that are after us want Proto J because Proto J would register higher on the consciousness test. And apparently the test that they give to all the robots and the mutants is rigged, and the robots would actually score higher than the regular humans on the consciousness test. They're actually better. So standardized testing where whites perform much better than non-whites, that's actually rigged, and if we just gave different tests, the blacks and the browns would actually score way better than the white people. Yes, I'm sure. We talk about book smart isn't the only way to be smart, and it's all the rich people's fault that they do crime. It's not IQ or low impulse control. It's all the rich people's fault, and these people would have built Wakanda if they are left to their own devices. Okay.
It's not like Proto J doesn't have potential. It's just that his life circumstances, the rigged system, have led him to use his skills and talents for things like crime and drug dealing. This is the story for 90% of sentient robots and chimeras who wind up in poverty, prison, and crime because of what? So a few quadrillionaires can have a few more bucks and lord it up over everyone else? I don't even know. I'm sorry, I get kind of emotional about this topic.
So, Coke Jobs wants Proto J. Does your family know about him also?
Not that I know of, but they are always on the lookout for more advanced entities. Proto J would be very valuable for whomever were to capture him.
Yeah, they talk about like Nazis and eugenic projects. I'm not joking. I'm not making any of this shit up. A black teenage gangster robot, and we're in a time travel ship, and we're talking about Nazi eugenic projects. And also, Princess Sybil is part of the Egalitate Collective. She wants a sharing economy, and the trenchcoat guy is called Aleph. And Aleph is a Hebrew character. Apparently it represents the number 1, but it's also the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, I think. I'm not 100%. It was carved into the head of the golem that gave it life. I think it also means breath, maybe like a oneness with God. Not 100% with this, but it's very Judaic. So that's good enough for me. And Sybil wants to stop her father and all of the rich people from just dominating the world as they keep doing so. She literally wants to betray her family, not just random rich people, but literally her family. The only good white people are the ones that turn on their own kind. And we are looking for the Garden of Forking Paths, and Proto J is the key to this. And if we can get to this garden before the other guys, then we can shape reality to however we want it. That's the mission. So we're looking for Proto J's creator, and we travel to a landfill. It looks like there's a shootout here. There's Game of Thrones references. Very cool, not dated and cringe at all. And then we make it inside the little shack, and the scientist inside is dead. So we play some videos from the creator. Oh, Princess Sybil also mentions that her first boyfriend was Jewish. I don't know. There's just a little detail that her first boyfriend was Jewish. Anyways, I won't play everything that the scientist says because that would just take forever. But one little clip that I thought was interesting was that the rich brainwashed Americans into thinking socialism is bad.
Our human overlords surely took lessons well from the United States, who suffered its own plutocrat coup d'etat, brainwashed Americans into believing socialism was somehow evil incarnate, even as they enjoyed socialist healthcare, education, law enforcement, paved roads, all things the 99% the poor lawbones living in the coastlandia sun sprawl no longer have, and curse their parents for failing to fight for them.
I don't think that I'm completely against socialism. I am against something like communism. I guess for like a super basic, easy example is if you have a basketball game going on and you have Team A, and Team A passes the ball, they do layups, they help, they get rebounds for other guys, they block for their teammates. They all work collectively together towards a common goal, and it's good. And then you have Team B, and Team B is a team full of individuals. They're prima donnas. Everyone is trying to dunk. Everyone is just trying to get points for them, and they don't really give a fuck how their team as a whole is doing. They're just trying to get theirs, and they don't care about the consequences. Won't pass the ball, anything like that. Okay, in a lot of situations, I do agree that having a high-trust collective is better than a low-trust individualistic society. That makes sense to me. That doesn't mean I want communism. While the super rich are not my fucking friends, the billionaire class fucking hates me. I acknowledge that. I accept that. Bill Gates is not my buddy. Elon Musk does not give a shit about me and probably hates me. That doesn't mean I'm going to team up with a bunch of low IQ, low impulse control, violent blacks and browns, and together we'll just have a utopia as long as we get rid of the super rich. Why do I have to have this false dichotomy? Why can I not be against the super rich and also the blacks and the browns, the robots and the mutants, if you will? And democracy isn't the be-all, end-all. Like, if you had someone performing open heart surgery on you, you would not want every uninformed person on the street to be able to voice an opinion, and their opinions are all weighed the same, and they're telling the doctor how to perform that surgery. If you're trying to land a plane and you just ask the passengers, hey, how do you think we should land the plane? How fast should we come in? When should we, put the wheels down? Whatever. You obviously don't want that. You want the pilot to make these decisions because they're experienced, they're trained, they know what they're doing. Their experience and training elevates them far above a bunch of ignorant people. So I do get that argument that for democracy, that just having a bunch of tyranny of the masses is not a great thing. And I'll touch more on like some politics stuff later on. And then we have a reference to Trayvon Martin. And I think this is different from Trayvon King, which we mentioned earlier. Don't know if the game developer was just like kind of stupid. I think he is kind of dumb. And he may have just fucked up his own story where he says Trayvon King and Trayvon Martin. Like, these are two different individuals. And maybe robots are so oppressed in this future that they had not one but two horrible shootings of robo teenagers named Trayvon. Maybe that is the lore. I don't know. Yeah, the princess talks to us about time travel. Time travel is limited to like 24 hours. And we're going to leave the lab, and then this weird spider android thing appears. It's really kind of gross looking. I thought this is like one of the times where like, oh, the art style's kind of good. And we just get the fuck out of there. And no one mentions it after that on the ship. You can talk to people. No one talks to you about, hey, what was that weird spider android thing that chased us out of the lab? No one talks about it. So our next step is go to the capital. Oh, and on our ship, we can choose what locations to go to. I don't know why the game gives us these options, because you cannot go to any location that the story does not want you to go to at that time. But since it's a time travel ship, you can choose to travel like in the present, in the past, in the future. Again, you can only pick the option that the story wants you to pick, so I don't know why they bothered giving you options in the first place. It doesn't matter, right? But why put the options in if they don't do anything? So we travel to the capital in the future, and we have a scene where we're listening in to our boss, Mr. Shuffler, and the mayor, and also the super rich guy. They're talking about gentrification, riots that go on, and they put agent provocateurs into the crowds because of course, for our modern day examples, our BLM, our Antifas are never actually violent themselves. They're always peaceful, and if there are ever any violence at these events or demonstrations, it's always because of agent provocateurs. Of course, every time. I wouldn't put it past the federal government that they do sneak in people to stir shit, but I'm not gonna give this guy an inch. Call the lower classes parasites. Oh, and I had my top screen fucked up this entire time because I guess in the previous scene, I had my cursor towards the top of the window. And when you do that, it pulls down the menu for like your hand, your walk, your talk, and your eye options. And because I did that, now for that entire cutscene, I could not change it. I could not pull my cursor down and have it go away. So top half of that cutscene was just totally cut off. Super cool. After they talk for a bit, Carl and Proto J walk in, and this felt like the most wish fulfillment, weird, cringy, pathetic attack on your white boss bit I've ever seen. Like, he's the brown man walking in the office, and he's gonna talk down his white boss. Oh shit, dog. That's what it felt like. Super gay, very cringy. They push back against Carl and Proto J, but then Sybil comes in. The white liberal class traitor, race traitor walks in, and she just totally owns these guys, and it's super epic. Fleur says that his son is trans-species / transgender. I don't think this is meant to be a parody by the author, but to me, it was very funny. Like, this is something to be ashamed about. This is something just utterly ridiculous, but I think this is played straight, where his son has changed species and has also changed gender, and that's supposed to be a good thing. Helicopter just attack this office building, and the guy is a Vietnam reference. He literally makes a Apocalypse Now reference later on, but just so out of place and just bizarre and stupid and not funny at all. Apparently there is a schism within the super rich. Princess Sybil is a Clinton Bush, but these guys are the Coke Jobs, and they're a rival faction. They mentioned the second Dresden bombing, and during the second bombing, they burned a fuck ton of leftists. The first Dresden bombing during World War II was a lot of German civilians in the city of Dresden being firebombed and killed. It was a very horrific bombing. So I guess because in World War II, the Germans were National Socialists, and we can't have them be victims at any point because they have to be the villains, we have now, sullied the Dresden bombing by having a second Dresden bombing. So I don't know why. I feel like it's just to muddy the waters there. It's very odd that he specifically makes it the second Dresden bombing. I think that is just like a fuck you to Germans. We have to do a little puzzle thing to set this jacuzzi. Yeah, literally, we set this jacuzzi to fly out of the window and to hit the helicopter and to take it out. So we said black bot, but like Robo Nig, that would be too far, right? He does say nigga, without the ER. So I don't know if I can say nigga on YouTube, but RoboNig, that's probably too far. So we'll go with Blackbot. So Blackbot wants to kill Shuffler. Shuffler represents everything that we hate, and Shuffler is a white guy trying to do better for him and his family, and he doesn't really like minorities because they're shitty, bad people that are parasites on the taxpayer's dime. But he's everything that we hate. So at this point, the team breaks off. Proto J wants to travel back in time and meet with his creator, before the scientist is dead. Princess Sybil has some bullshit to do, and we want to go back to the Proto J apartment building to try to get information about the guys who came in and were shooting around and kidnapped Princess and all that. But before that, we go to that morning at Sentient Services where we work, because Blackbot said that maybe we shouldn't trust Princess Sybil because Princess Sybil is actually still a part of the 1% and is super wealthy, and can we trust her, dog? I don't know. So we go back to that morning. So I just looked through my notes. I actually don't know why we go back here during this time. I don't know. I didn't write it down. I don't think the game explains it too well either. And something that I just glossed over is, yeah, we can time travel. There's time travel in this game. I don't know why it's here or why exactly it's super necessary, but yeah, time travel, I guess. But when we get here, we see the pink girl that stole our card before and we were forced to save. We see royal agents talking to her. These are Princess Sybil's bodyguards. So we're like, what the hell? And we're hiding in the side street, and we see ourselves pull up in our car. Our character goes inside, And outside this area, there's lots of tents and homeless, and we are trying to make a listening device so we can hear what the hell is going on. We're going to follow the pink hair girl whenever she comes back outside. And this is maybe one of the best parts in the game, but there's a transgenic crab girl reading Das Kapital, the book by Karl Marx. Why is she a crab? What's the point? How does she turn the fucking pages with her pincers? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She's oppressed. She's a transgenic crab girl reading Das Kapital, and she's oppressed. And we have to fix her solar panels so she'll give us headphones so we can make the fucking listening device thing. There's no thought, right? There's no thought to this world. There's no thought to how things interact with each other. Did this woman deliberately give herself giant crab pincers? And why would she do so? Was she born this way? She's just a freak, a mutant? Or was this a elective surgery? And now she has the joy of trying to turn her page with non-fingers. This is the epitome of like leftist creativity, I suppose. So we follow the pink hair bitch. She speaks to the agents as she's talking about maybe recruiting us. We go into the time ship. There's the pink hair chick and the two bodyguards. She is working for the princess, and we think the princess has used them, us, meaning Carl and Blackbot. Apparently, then Sybil shows up. Sybil has a vessel, which is the pink robot chick. She was actually inside the pink robot chick's body. Like, that's just a body. She can, like, transfer consciousnesses, okay? She needed to test us. Apparently, she had been living in the ghetto to, like, get the experience of actually being an oppressed minority for, like, 6 months to really get in character. And she was just trying to find people that she could count on, and we are one of the people that she could count on. We agree to work with her if she takes care of our family, our ex-wife, and our son, and then if she also promises never to lie to us again. Then we're at the pile. We go inside. The spider monster is apparently good. It creates artwork. It was made in 2033. This world doesn't make sense. If you said 2533 or 3033, okay, but this timeline just does not fucking add up. It's really just bizarre and stupid. And we have some journals from the scientist about reality rigging. He insults a shit ton of people. I have a question. This guy, this scientist, is the father of artificial intelligence. He made all these robots and these other things. Super brilliant guy. He personally created Proto J. I don't really know why you would build a black robot. I don't know why. I don't know why you would make him like a gangster robot. And Proto J has a little cry about growing up in the hood and we not getting them programs, not having enough money for his sneakies, that type of thing. Shocking, I know, but this white liberal man is turned on by his black creation. I was floored. And then Aleph is there, the trenchcoat guy who hasn't spoken. He can't speak and he doesn't really do much anyways, and he dies. No one really gives a shit. He was called Primordial by the doctor. Felt they were going to fail and he couldn't watch more of his robotic children become enslaved and used by the super wealthy. The super wealthy were trying to get him to open up the Garden of Forking Paths and he wouldn't do it. So he made Proto J the key to it. Whatever. Now we're with Princess Sybil and the guys. We go to the country club, which is this huge golf course, and we meet with King Warren, our father, who is literally a king. I guess he's king of the solar system. It doesn't matter. The crazy general who tried to murder us with the helicopter is here. He talks about the helicopter attack. He blames it on Muslim terrorists. And the king is very polite and nice to Princess Sybil while the general is there. But once the general is gone and it's just Warren and Sybil, he's suddenly very, very mean. And Sybil just talks and talks and talks. There's so much talking about helping the poor. King Warren is very cool and red-pilled, and he says it would be a waste to give these people money. I agree fully. I'll play some of his audio.
Sybil. Oh, my innocent little flower girl. If only you truly understood how power really worked, you'd know why that's not possible.
I am not your naive little daddy's girl, and I will not be condescended to anymore. I'm trying to help provide equal opportunities to the 99% non-royals, build communities, bridge the interspecies racism that is tearing everyone apart, one riot, shooting, and terrorist attack at a time on the planets you claim to be running, but you mostly just ignore and exploit.
You want me to treat you like a grown-up? Fine. Here's the hard truth, princess. There have always been the haves and the have-nots, and that's the way we'll always be. Let's say I open up the Clington Bush coffers to the commoners, the unwashed terrestrials. Redistribute wealth. Sure, they would be eating lobster nightly, sporting shiny chrome body parts the skies would fill with flying cars. For a time. But helping the poor is like throwing money into a fire. They just burn it up and ask for more. There's no return on investment. I've already pushed billions in aid to terrestrial slum sprawls this year alone with nothing to show for it.
Look, I can have some sympathy for some poor people that have fallen on hard times, but the amount of poor people that I know personally who go out of their way to make their lives shittier because they have low impulse control and are probably lower IQ is their own fault. It's not this super evil system designed to fuck people over. It kind of is. In a lot of ways, it is. But here's an example I can give. So at work, some of my coworkers, they're talking about free lunches at their schools for their kids and everything, blah, blah, blah. They really like that schools offer free lunches, and they think that schools should offer free lunches. Of course, they're kind of retarded, and they don't understand the concept that free lunches are not fucking free. They are paid for by the taxpayer, meaning you and me, the working class, the poor, the working poor, we pay. The rich people have lawyers and accountants and other offshore bank accounts and other bullshit to avoid paying taxes. We don't. So your free lunch is really not free because we're going to pay for it. You like to think that maybe the rich people are being taxed for it, but they're really not being taxed for it. It just doesn't work, right? And we absolutely do not need free fucking lunches. Are prices more expensive now? I know. Kamala Harris told us that we live in the best economy in American history right now. So true, Queen. But despite increased food prices, how expensive is a jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread? There are so many calories in a single jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread, and just brown bagging your kid's lunch 5 days a week. A peanut butter sandwich, you could do a lunch meat too, whatever. You could add cheese even. Banana, apple, you could do like a little snack, like a cookie, fruit snack if they're a young kid, or like some nuts, cereal. You have so many options. They're all pretty cheap. And you could probably feed your kid for lunch. Like, honestly, if you're doing like peanut butter, bananas, third thing, and like fourth thing, which would probably last for 2 weeks, if not more, I guess, depending on how many children you have. But you could probably feed that child for less than $2 a day for the lunch. How expensive is that really? But like your average dumb fuck poor person thinks that the free lunch is cheaper when I guarantee you they are being taxed way more than that for when they're paying their taxes for their local public school, right? Because you have to pay for lunch ladies, their salary, all the ingredients and just for all of it. And several of the people that I was working with that were talking about how good free lunches are. They're the type of people that would claim that they can't afford it. Every single one of those guys smokes. They either vape or they just buy actual cigarettes and they smoke them, and they smoke a lot every day. But magically, somehow, there's no money to feed your own child. So forgive me if I don't really love the poor people. If there's genuinely a good, decent person that fell on extremely hard times, and maybe a job fell through, and then another job fell through, and there's some tragedy in their family, and they actually really needed assistance, okay, let's help them. But majority of the time, it's not. They're the type of people that can afford cigarettes and alcohol, but they can't afford to take care of their own children somehow because they ain't got no money. Oh, and another thing, another little work anecdote personally. People that cry about money every single day, there's people I work with where every single day they go out and they buy their lunch every fucking day. spending like $10 or so, roughly $10 or so on lunch every day. So just, again, every week, one meal, $50 on lunch. You're talking about $200 every month just on lunch, And I think about my total overall grocery bill for an entire month. That's nuts. But whatever, you can't hold these people accountable just because they're fucking stupid. And Sybil talks about if these people just had a chance, they would be great thinkers and shit. There are no great thinkers in the slums, because if they were smarter than average, they would get the fuck out of there. And that's really what happens. You kind of have a brain drain where those that are smart enough to get the fuck out, and they don't look back.
Ludicrous. If sentients on the ground just had enough to lift themselves out of the poverty trap, who knows what they could do? Who knows how many great scientists, engineers, artists, the next Einstein, the next Noah Goetzel could be living in that slum, slaving at a dead-end job, forced to become a drug lord to survive, wasting his talent just because we, the 1%, wanted a bigger piece of the pie. All people of all races and substrates could be living happier and more productive.
Anyways, no more anecdotes. We're going to press on. So there's this summit going on with the super rich people. You're just meeting with all these dignitaries. And the story is really just about killing white people, and specifically your white dad that wants you to inherit the family business. It's really about murdering him and helping your non-white allies just steal everything that white people built. That's really what this game is. We meet Princess Sarah, who Princess Sybil does like and thinks is good because she's like a lesbian, and like there's some weird tranny, maybe transgenic, like different race shit that Princess Sarah did in the past. So the two super rich people that we are allowed to like, the only super rich people that we are allowed to like, are both white women, and they're both like class traders, race traders, and also, I guess, maybe gender traders, whatever. These are the only ones we're allowed to like. This is super subtle. Wow. We got this huge speech from King Warren. He's very based.
On my 12th birthday, I received no super yacht in the shape of a whale, no private orbital Disneyland theme park, or directorial ownership of my favorite kids show like most kids do. I wanted my pony princess, but I digress. No, my father's present was to give me the city once known as New York, to rule as chief executive lord and mayor. It was my job to lower taxes for the wealthy, to sit on the boards of major Wall Street banks, increase corporate profits, and ensure the Clinton-Bush estate continued to grow from its meager $1 trillion. Humble beginnings, I know. I learned more in that 12th year of my life than perhaps any year since. I learned the way the world truly worked has always worked.
And then he is poisoned. Sybil pretends to care about her dad. It's very half-hearted. Then the general guy and Noland make their power play with their helicopters, so they're attacking Sybil's family. The general is like assuming direct control. Literally makes an Apocalypse Now reference. I want to shoot myself. And Sybil realizes the only way out of this is to use the Garden of Forking Paths to change reality. So we go down to the research facility, which is an elevator below where King Warren died. There's a lot of people in cells here. We have some weird puzzles down below. And as we're trying to turn on the Garden of Forking Paths, which is this weird, it kind of looks like a brain room, King Warren appears. Apparently, he killed himself. He is planning to build a great empire. He needed us to come downstairs and to bring the robot, because if he had tried to force us or just ask us to do it, we wouldn't have done it. But by us bringing Proto J down, and since he's the key, he activates the Garden of Forking Paths. Warren is the ghost in the machine. He is Deus Ex Machina, and he blows up the Sky City of the general and that like rival rich family. And he is acting like a total god. He calls people welfare queens.
Forgetting one thing, bitch. All that glitters ain't always gold.
Ah, the low city's trash speaks. Goetzel must have truly lost his mind to put the key to the kingdom in a worthless tin can like you. Really, Sybil, all the low city franken freaks and junkbots can ever amount to is nothing. Welfare queens at best, suckling at the high city teat for an energy handout or free housing. And the majority? Murderers, rapists, drug dealers, like this metal thug here. All you do by trying to help them is prolong their pointless, miserable lives of squalor.
Blackbot is attacking King Warren because he's trying to buy his time, and Carl and Princess Sybil get captured on their way out of the facility. We're trapped in prison. King Warren asks us if we will go to a jail cell. Your kid and your ex-wife are in a cell, but they can't hear or speak to us. We agree to go into the cell so that your family can have a better life. King Warren also brings up that we shot Trayvon Martin. I'm not making that up. I am not making that up. So I still don't know if Trayon Martin and Trayvon King are two separate people or not. I assume they are, but whatever. I don't care. You would think that Blackbot would be dead, but Blackbot is in fact not dead, and he is now jacked into everything. He is like the ghost in the machine, like King Warren. So he gets to stick around. Isn't that amazing? I don't know why we are in a jail cell. I don't know why King Warren has kept us alive. I can understand keeping his daughter alive because he still loves her and wants her to like take over the family business someday. Whatever. She's family. We are not given an actual plot point why we are being kept alive. King Warren just blew up an entire city. He's killed millions, if not tens of millions of people. He plans on killing a lot more people. I don't know what the point is, but I guess the developer couldn't come up with something compelling. So now we have to confront Warren, and we get a flashback with Proto J. He has been sent back in time to the scientists. Yeah, Blackbot is the key to everything. Made him a doctor who was a prisoner of the super rich, labeled Proto J as defective so that he wouldn't be in the weird prison thing, and experimented on, and he could just be tossed in a trash pile and he would just be out in the world and free. Proto J does some crybaby shit, and then the science man says he deserves to be killed for making his life difficult, even though like he just put him outside. You know, the robots are the ones that made the ghettos what the ghettos are, and then the scientist kills himself. Now we have to use the Garden of Forking Paths to change reality, but Warren is still in control. And even though Warren is dead, like his body died, because he's still a digital consciousness, he's still technically the king of everything. So we have to trick the guards into thinking that Warren is gone. We bring the body down, and then we have Proto J like send them messages so that they think that King Warren is dead. So Sybil gets called the queen. And then we stab the king's heart. Sybil talks about just having the luck of being born a bush. This is such an insulting line. This is one of the worst lines in this entire fucking game. This is like guns, germs, and steel. Putting the epitome of everything that Western civilization has created as just being luck, not generation of people working hard and building and planting trees for future generations and just creating and building towards something, some good that we believe in, you know, and developing sciences and technologies. No, it's just luck. It was all just luck. We just got like a lucky spawn and everyone else had a bad spawn, and that's why things turned out the way that they did.
You're not that smart. You just had the good luck of being born a Clinton Bush.
I will end you all. I will end the world if I have to.
It's not like Indians living in America without contact with anyone else for thousands of years, and they're on one of the most resource-rich continents on the planet, and they're too retarded to build any technologies or develop anything. That's still white people's fault. Africa, again, another giant, huge, resource-rich continent, and they didn't invent the wheel. But that's all white people's fault. It was just the luck of being born a bush, you know? It's like they want you to be ashamed of inheriting anything. They want you to be ashamed of your family and anything your family has built. And yes, you living in your father's house. Your father built this house with his own two hands, and it's great. You know, it's a great, wonderful, beautiful house, and you love it. And then some stranger walks into your house and says, you didn't earn it. You know, you didn't build this house yourself. Yeah, I didn't, but my family did. So yes, I do have a right to be here. Get the fuck out of my house. Then Blackbot returns, just magic, I guess. He is back. He is back. They talk about we can have a chance to have something different. Sybil hates her family, all that they've built. Look, and there are obviously some problems with monopolies and the rich getting too rich and not having some kind of checks and balance. I totally believe that. I mean, we can talk about Julius Caesar, right? Common people supported Julius Caesar because he was going to break up the huge landowning factions that made up the Senate. How it used to be in Rome, if you were a soldier and then once you retired, you would be given a parcel of land as your like pension, your retirement plan, right? So you would inherit that. And then at some point, some farmers were either just smarter, they were better at farming, some people were just worse at farming, or they just sold their land, they didn't care for that lifestyle, and naturally people just built up their land more and more and more until they had an obscene amount of wealth, and they owned all the land, and they had slaves work the land, so they just outcompeted anyone who didn't have slaves, and they just took over everything, and this was a huge problem in Rome, and that's why Julius Caesar took power. Power always seeks to expand itself. That's true. The Industrial Revolution, some good, a lot of bad. Having sweatshops in England and white children being worked to death at times in factories, and you just have people forced off the land and then they have to work in a factory in inhuman conditions. Entire families would live like that. Not licking the boots of the super rich and think that they have my best interests at heart. If Bill Gates and Elon Musk had their way, I would be a slave. I would own nothing. I would be in a Tesla factory and I would live and die there. Same with Amazon. That's how it would be. But back to the game. So we kill King Warren. Sybil sits on the throne. She starts changing society, undoing some of the damage that Warren has done. And Carl has a conversation with his wife. His wife and child are now going to be taken care of. And we cut to Carl sitting in an office, the same office that his boss Shuffler was in, talking down to the mayor and to Noland. They have to do what this brown man says. You feel, dog? Princess Sybil, who I guess should be called Queen Sybil, but they keep calling her Princess, establishes the egalitate law. And I'll play that audio.
Oh, Your Majesty! What a pleasant surprise.
Save it. I overheard everything.
I'm so sorry, my queen.
Oh no! Please have mercy!
Don't worry, Laura. You can keep your job. As long as you spend a year of your life in abject poverty for every 2 years in office.
What?
It's my new egalite law. To prevent the elite from becoming out of touch with the 99%, you will have to live at the level of the society's poorest for 1 full year, foregoing all titles and all help from your family, friends, or other connections. I call it deprivileging of the entitled. If you survive poverty, you get to keep your wealth. Otherwise, the Egalite Cooperative confiscates all of it.
Then that night, Carl meets up with Blackbot in the arcade. Apparently, Proto J is doing community outreach and shit, whatever. Warren might also be alive. He might be haunting some arcade machine, and that is NeoFeud. I didn't know what to expect going in. I just saw that I was an indie developer, so I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. I'll check that out. And it's like, oh, a cyberpunk game? I just beat all the Deus Ex games. That sounds fun. What a mistake. It's $15. It's technically on sale right now for $4.50. I highly don't recommend this game. It's clunky. It's bad. If you want to watch a walkthrough on YouTube, watch a walkthrough on YouTube. You know, there are some full walkthroughs. But holy shit, don't give this guy any fucking money. God awful. This was god awful. Dex, that also sucked. I don't really have much to recommend except for Dex is like $20. $20 is ridiculous for how clunky Dex is when it's not on sale. That's fucking ridiculous. That's a travesty. But I do have 2 more indie games. I'm hoping that will be out the following week. I've almost beaten one of them. It's looking like it's a non-recommendation. There are some good aspects to it. There's a lot going on in it that's like far better than Dex and NeoFeud. but that's probably also a non-recommendation. And the other one, I haven't tested it yet, but hopefully that'll be a recommendation because I do want to give recommendations to people. Anyways, that's what's on the horizon. I have some video game content. Yeah, you can check out some of my Deus Ex vids. There's also a playlist where I have, the video game discussion, and then the rest of the channel is just kind of a review of other forms of media. NeoFeud was entertaining in a very bad way, and it was cringy, and it was just... It was an experience. I know that's very gay to say that something was like an experience, man, but this was an experience. It was so bizarre and badly done that I guess you just sort of had to experience it. I wouldn't recommend experiencing it for yourself, but I experienced it. And Dex was just unpleasant. If you liked the video, you can like. If you disliked, you can dislike it. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching. White Pill Media out.